What if the money in your pocket today is worth less tomorrow? How would that affect your life, your business, your country? This is the perplexing predicament of inflation, a concept that, while might seem abstract, has real-world implications. Inflation is essentially a general increase in prices and a simultaneous fall in the purchasing value of money. Imagine going to your favorite coffee shop, and suddenly, your daily cup of joe costs more than it did yesterday. Or perhaps you own a business, and the price of raw materials starts to climb, squeezing your profit margins. These are just a few examples of how inflation can creep into our daily lives and businesses, subtly eroding the value of our money. Inflation is not confined to any one country or economy. It's a universal phenomenon, but in some places it's more pronounced than others. This is the reality for many in Pakistan, where inflation continues to be a pressing issue. Inflation isn't a simple concept. It's like a spider web, intricate and interconnected. Let's delve deeper into this economic phenomenon. Imagine you're in a marketplace and you notice that the price of apples has gone up. What could be the reason? It could be that the cost of producing apples has increased. This scenario is known as cost-push inflation. When the cost of raw materials or wages rises, producers are compelled to pass those costs on to the consumers. But let's say the cost of production has remained the same, yet the price of apples still goes up. This time, the potential cause could be demand pull inflation. An increase in demand for a product without a corresponding increase in its supply can drive up prices. Now, you might think, well, I'll just buy fewer apples. But what if the prices of all goods and services are on the rise? This is the crux of inflation. It's not just about apples or any single item. It's about the overall increase in the price level of an economy. And this has a profound impact on our purchasing power. When prices go up, the money in your pocket buys less than it did before. It's as if your money has shrunk while everything else around you has grown. This is the impact on purchasing power. And it hits hard on people's cost of living, especially those on fixed incomes who can't keep up with the rising prices. Inflation also affects businesses. When prices increase, they may need to adjust their budgets, rethink their strategies, and even consider laying off workers. The effects of inflation are far-reaching. It influences interest rates, investment decisions, and government policies. It can also lead to social unrest when people can't afford basic necessities. In essence, inflation is a complex, multifaceted issue that impacts everyone in some way. It's not just about economics. It's about people's lives and their ability to thrive. When inflation rises, it can be like a tiny stone causing ripples across a large pond. Inflation isn't a new guest in Pakistan's economic landscape. It's been a long-standing resident. To fully comprehend the current scenario, we need to take a brief walk down memory lane. In the latter part of the 20th century, Pakistan was hit by a wave of inflation due to global oil crises and political instability. These factors set the stage for a trend of inflation that has persisted, with varying intensity, over the years. Fast forward to 2023, inflation in Pakistan has once again tightened its grip. The current inflation rate hovers around double digits, a figure that paints a grim picture for the average Pakistani citizen. The cost of living has skyrocketed, with basic necessities becoming more of a luxury for many. But the impact of inflation extends beyond the individual household. It's a matter that permeates the entire fabric of the Pakistani economy. It hampers the growth of businesses by increasing the cost of raw materials, thereby reducing profit margins. This in turn leads to a decrease in production, layoffs, and a rise in unemployment. Moreover, inflation also affects the country's exchange rate. As the value of the local currency depreciates, imports become more expensive, further fueling the inflationary cycle. And let's not forget the government's role. As inflation rises, so does the cost of public projects, stretching the nation's budget thin. But perhaps the most poignant impact of inflation is on the country's poor. With inflation eroding the purchasing power of their income, the poor find themselves trapped in a cycle of poverty. In a country where a significant proportion of the population lives below the poverty line, inflation becomes a matter of survival. So, you see, inflation in Pakistan isn't just an economic term. It's the silent yet persistent drumbeat that dictates the rhythm of daily life. It's the invisible hand that shapes the future of millions. Inflation in Pakistan isn't just numbers on a page, it's a reality affecting millions. Inflation is a domino effect. One piece falls and the rest follow. This is not just a metaphor, it's the harsh reality of how inflation works, impacting almost every facet of the economy. Let's start with investment. Inflation can make the future uncertain, discouraging investors. High inflation rates can erode the return on investments. For instance, if you invest $1,000 expecting a 10% return, but inflation is at 12%, you're actually losing money. The real return on your investment is negative 2%. This discourages investment, which is a key driver of economic growth. Now let's shift our focus to savings. When inflation is high, the purchasing power of money decreases. So, the money you've saved today may not have the same value tomorrow. This discourages savings, which are vital for an economy's stability. If people aren't saving, they're not investing. And without investment, there's no economic growth. Inflation also plays a significant role in income distribution. It can affect different income groups differently. Those on fixed incomes or pensions can find it hard to cope with rising prices, widening the gap between the rich and the poor. Inflation can inadvertently contribute to social inequality, creating a divide in society that's hard to bridge. Then there's the overall impact on economic stability and growth. Inflation can lead to uncertainty, reducing economic activity, and slowing down economic growth. It can create a vicious cycle of rising prices and falling investment and savings, leading to economic instability. But it's not just the big picture. Inflation affects everyday life. It can increase the cost of living, making it harder for people to meet their basic needs. It can lead to job losses as businesses struggle to cope with rising costs. It's a domino effect that touches everyone, from the big businesses to the small households. So you see, inflation is more than just rising prices. It's a cascade of economic repercussions, a domino effect that can topple the best-laid economic plans. With every rise in inflation, the dominoes keep falling. In every cloud, there's a silver lining, even in the storm of inflation. It's a storm, yes, but it's not all dark and dreary. Inflation, when properly managed, can be a catalyst for economic growth. When prices rise, so does the incentive for businesses to produce more. This can lead to an increase in employment and a boost in economic activity. Inflation can also lighten the real burden of debt. As prices go up, the value of money goes down. This means that the burden of repaying debts can actually decrease in real terms. Imagine that. Being in debt during inflation could ironically be beneficial. But let's be clear here. These potential benefits hinge on the careful management of inflation. It's a delicate balancing act, like walking a tightrope. Too much inflation and the economy could spiral out of control. Too little, and there might not be enough stimulus for growth. Inflation isn't all gloom and doom. It can be a tool for economic growth when wielded correctly. Inflation is a journey, not a destination, and for Pakistan, the road ahead is long. In the face of this complex economic conundrum, a two-pronged approach is vital, one that includes both monetary policy adjustments and fiscal discipline. Monetary policy, the management of money supply and interest rates, is a powerful tool in the hands of the State Bank of Pakistan. By raising interest rates, the bank could make borrowing money more expensive, thereby reducing spending and slowing inflation. However, this is not a standalone solution. It must be supplemented with fiscal discipline. This means the government needs to be prudent in its spending, ensuring that it does not exceed its revenues. By reducing the budget deficit, the pressure on inflation can be mitigated, but these measures alone are not enough. The road to inflation control also demands economic stability. For this, Pakistan needs a robust and resilient economy, one that can withstand external shocks. This can be achieved through diversification of the economy, strengthening of the industrial sector, and promotion of exports. In addition, strategic planning is essential. This involves forecasting inflation trends, understanding the root causes, and then formulating policies accordingly. It's about having a clear vision of the economic landscape and charting a course that navigates around the pitfalls of inflation. The road ahead also requires the participation of all stakeholders. It's about fostering a culture of shared responsibility where everyone, from the government to the private sector to the citizens, plays their part in combating inflation. And lastly, but importantly, there's a need for patience. Inflation is a slow-moving beast. It takes time for measures to take effect, for the economy to adjust, and for inflation to slow down. Quick fixes are not the answer. Inflation in Pakistan is a challenge, but it's one that can be managed with careful planning and strategic action. The journey may be long, but with the right strategies and a concerted effort from all, Pakistan can steer its economy towards a stable and inflation-free future. So, what does this all mean for Pakistan and its economy? We've dissected the concept of inflation, a persistent specter haunting Pakistan's economy. We've seen how it's akin to a domino effect, toppling over aspects of the economy one after the other. But we've also glimpsed the silver lining, potential solutions to manage and mitigate this economic challenge. It's a complex puzzle, no doubt, but we've taken that first crucial step towards solving it. Inflation is a complex issue, but understanding it is the first step towards managing it.